back. Mike Allen and Mike Allen Jr. in for the great American Willie Cunningham. Hey, we've been talking about it already all night. What should the United States response be to the brutal invasion of Israel by Hamas? And will that response be complicated by the vacancy in the office of Speaker of the House? Here to talk about it is Congressman Brad Wenstrup of Ohio's 2nd Congressional District, where he sits on the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemics, Ways and Means, and the very important House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure, although the topics aren't that pleasurable. But glad to be with you tonight, Mike.
It's been tough. It really is. Let me just start it right out here. We all woke up yesterday to the news of the brutal and just unprovoked attack on our longtime ally, Israel, by the Palestinian Islamic terrorist, Hamas. Your thoughts, Congressman, in general, and then we'll get specific about the attack.
Well, my thoughts in general is this obviously appears to be unprovoked. It's brutal. It's an act of war, and Israel has said this is an act of war, and we are at war. What I have seen is just horrific. Israel right now is in the initial fog of war they didn't expect, but at least I can say that I feel that there's been an intelligence breakdown. I mean, there were a few things to consider. This is the 50th anniversary of the Six-Day War, which was a humiliation to Arab forces back in 1973. It's a Jewish holiday, Simchat Torah, and it's their Sabbath. I mean, those are three things that make their enemies salivate as far as wanting to go invade and attack. And so they do seem to have been caught off guard about this, and there doesn't seem to be that there was a high alert for that day. And so it makes me question the intelligence that they might have and what we have. Now, I'll be back in D.C. tomorrow, and on Tuesday we're planning on getting a brief, but there's a lot of things that need to be answered. But these guys are killing men, women, and children.
Horrible.
They say they fired about 5,000 rockets. Israelis are saying it was about 2,500, but they did it all in 20 minutes. And I've seen the Iron Dome, and I've seen the Iron Dome work. Mm-hmm. And the thing that is interesting is it was just overwhelming for them. Unfortunately, it was too much for the Iron Dome. But there are reports that there were attacks from land, air, sea. This is quite sophisticated, and it's amazing that it wasn't discovered beforehand.
Right.
And it got about 700 people dead reported now, and I'm sure it's going to grow. I've seen some footage that's just very disturbing and holding families hostage. There's been over 2,000 wounded. And about 100 Israeli hostages. And I'm also concerned of reports about Americans being taken hostage. And look, if I'm a foreign country or entity like Hamas, what have we seen around the world with this administration is that they will negotiate quite readily when there are hostages taken. And that hasn't always been our stance, especially with terrorists.
Right.
And so this is the situation that we're in today. And I'm standing with Israel and their right to defend themselves. And I think this is their Pearl Harbor or their 9/11 at this point. So, what's the perfect storm? There's some internal unrest in Israel. You know what? We've got it here too.
Yep, sure.
Note to self, United States of America. This internal unrest, we've got to start coming together as American people first.
Absolutely.
But you see a situation, $6 billion unleashed for Iran supposedly going to humanitarian aid. There's no way of policing that. And even if it does go there, then that means you just freed up $6 billion for them to use for the things that they have been known to do. And, recent history is just showing that we have this problem. And so maybe there was a motive. I'm just thinking freely here, Mike. Maybe there's a motive that they're upset that Israel's trying to form a relationship with Saudi Arabia, but now you've got reports of attacks from the north, from Lebanon. it's just one thing after another. We got to stop sending money to Iran.
Yeah.
$6 billion.
And that's the other thing.
And that
Now,
leads me to the. I'm sorry, Congress. That leads me to the. And you're probably getting to this. We saw the Wall Street Journal, I guess, a few hours ago, broke, and you can see it on Twitter. You know, a lot of these Hezbollah, guys and Hamas from the north. I mean, we all know that Hamas and Hezbollah would not exist but for Iran. But specific to this operation, this attack, is there any doubt in your mind that Iran helped actually plan this attack on the Israeli people?
Oh, they're directly related. Right. I don't know about the details of planning,
right?
But they certainly wouldn't have said, no, we won't help you, because they have been. And that's just where they are and what they're all about at this time. You know, you asked earlier, too, does it help or hurt that we don't have a speaker? Well, it hurts. And that's a real problem. I mean, they're seeing disarray within the United States. You have the conflict with Russia and Ukraine. All these things are just adding up. And you saw that our very weak withdrawal from Afghanistan, it doesn't show a willingness to take on evil entities in the world. It shows that we are ready to run. And so right now we need a speaker. We need a speaker for a lot of reasons. One, the Republicans in the House of Representatives are the last line of defense. We've got an open border. We've got a debt that's leading us to bankruptcy. And we've got, we see our global stature in the world diminishing. Yep. We see splintering within the Republican Party that's led to the removal of the Speaker of the House when the clear majority of the majority on the Republican side were good with Kevin McCarthy. And you should also take a look at the things that he accomplished while he was Speaker and in the short time that he was Speaker.
Yep.
And, you know, we're $33 trillion in debt. We forced a 30% cut on the Senate. We're only barely 1/2 of 1/3 of the government.
Right.
And we got concessions. We dropped $2.1 trillion of money the Democrats had just recently decided to spend. And we cut that. That's pretty amazing considering the president said he wanted a clean debt ceiling, and we got that those cuts when we are just that small portion of the government right now. We also put in a 1% cut if all the 12 appropriations bills aren't done. And so I think the Democrats believe that Kevin McCarthy was pretty effective because they decided to vote him out. That's their motive.
Right.
And then we have members within our own party, 8 people that decided they would do it too. Well, now we have nothing. So what did they hope to accomplish? This hurts us tremendously. It makes us look bad. We've got investigations we need to continue. We've got to look into the Biden family operation, the Department of Justice, FBI. I chair the select subcommittee on the pandemic, and we're looking at origins of COVID, but we're also reviewing everything that was said and done during that time and try to get some lessons learned. We're discovering a cover-up. Why do people in the United States government, scientists, not want to have a scientific debate and just declare
it's amazing.
And just declare that COVID came from nature, when every indication, if you look at all the facts around lab and all the facts around nature, everything would lead you to believe the lab, and especially since China's not cooperating.
Well,
this past week I was supposed to be at the WHO with Tedros to discuss the future of the WHO and how we make it an accountable organization that's there to benefit humankind.
Let me ask you this. I mean, Rand Paul in the Senate, obviously all over it. You're all over it, too. What do you think, Congressman, is the end game for that? I mean, are we ever going to – I think I know how you feel about it, and from listening to what you say and others, I feel the same way. But what's the end game? Are we ever going to get a final resolution of that issue?
No, I don't think we will, because China will never come forward with the absolute information. Now, if somebody comes forward and says, oh, yes, this came from our lab, well, you know what happens to them in China. There's already been one scientist that was saying a little too much, and suddenly he fell out of a window. So, that's going to make it very difficult. But I think what we want to do is present the facts as we know them. and present that to the American people, and people can draw their own conclusions. And I think that what we find is more and more that it came from the lab, but now it's a matter of just getting the information out to the American people. But this committee's doing more than that. We also want to look at everything we did, the bills that we passed in Congress, how we managed our healthcare system throughout this process. All of these things that you have to do, like the military approach, and call it after-action review, lessons learned. And so hopefully we can create something at the end that's going to give us a pathway so that we can maybe predict the next pandemic and prepare ourselves for it, protect ourselves from it, and maybe even prevent it. But we have to start looking at things as a matter of fact, because whether it comes from nature, whether it comes from the lab, whether it comes unintentionally or intentionally, maybe it comes in the form of a bioweapon someday, that's what we have to be prepared for. And we have to be prepared both as civilians and militarily.
Congressman, as we stand here in October of 2023, looking back on the last couple of years relative to COVID, I think there's really no debate at this point that people within the healthcare, apparatus, so to speak, were not exactly honest about a lot of this stuff. And I'm specifically talking about Dr. Anthony Fauci. He has been less than truthful about his connections with EcoHealth and working around the gain-of-function research. I would venture to say the man has perjured himself in front of Congress multiple times. There's a lot of people out there that are losing hope in anybody being held accountable in any of this. Is Congress or anyone in any position to hold this man accountable for some of the things that he was obviously less than truthful about?
Yeah, if you lie to Congress, that's right. That's perjury. Right. And there's also times when some people are in contempt of Congress along the way. We're negotiating with Dr. Fauci right now for when he can come in for a transcribed interview. Yeah. And you have to go back and forth with the lawyers and make an agreement. And sometimes if you don't get what you want, you have to have proven that they weren't cooperative, and then you can get a subpoena. I've learned that there's a process to that. You just can't throw out subpoenas. Right. But at the same time, I think that in this case, what we're doing is, we're starting at the ground level and then working our way towards other people to see how things played out. I mean, you look at school closures and you see that Randy Weingarten, the head of the teachers union, she got contacted by the Biden administration. Right. By the Biden team, I should say, before he was even sworn in as president, to get their opinion. And I can tell you stories of when some bills that we passed bipartisan out of committee on Ways and Means weren't taken to the floor because the teachers union didn't like it. And Pelosi said, I'm not letting that come to the floor. And in this particular case, it was because we were expanding 529s where people could put money away for their kids' education. We were expanding it to children with disabilities and for homeschooling. Well, that takes away from the teachers, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So, so the teachers union didn't want it in there. We were told by the Democrats that's why it was pulled from the bill. Yep. And this is what goes on. And so they have this influence, and through all their reporting, they were just saying we need measures to close the schools. Yep. They weren't talking amongst themselves saying it's so important that we get the kids back in school. We've got to do that. It's so important for their education and their future. No. It was like, what do we need to do to keep the schools closed? And that I could give you the exact phrases that they used, but I'm paraphrasing with that. And the reason I just said that is because they threatened to sue me at one point. So,
you must be doing something right then. If the teachers union's threatening to sue you, you're doing something right.
You definitely. Hey, Congressman, we got time for one more question. It looks like it's coming down to Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan for the speakership. There's some speculation because of what's happening in Israel. It could happen this week. Do you care to tell us who your favorite is? And I guess the other part of it, do you think it'll be resolved quickly, like this week?
I don't know if it'll be resolved quickly. I really don't. I mean, when you have people in our conference that are willing to, vacate the chair, and it only takes 8 people, it's going to be tough. Look, these are two great people. I'm really close friends with both of these candidates. What I have always done in every speaker race since I've been in Congress is I keep that vote personal to me.
Sure.
I guess I'm kind of like the Cardinals at the Vatican when they're electing folks.
You're going to see some white smoke at some point.
Well, we would hope so.
Yeah.
But I do make this commitment that whoever wins in conference, wins the majority in conference, that's who I will support and vote for on the floor.
There you go.
And I think everyone should take the same attitude, and then it wouldn't take very long.
Sure.
We would actually get something done. But if people aren't going to do that, and I don't know that people will commit to that, then who knows how long it will take.
No, I got
But,
you.
I think we're fortunate. We have a couple of real stars, some people that really know how to make things happen and get things done. It's just we'll see where it goes.
No question about it. Unfortunately, Congressman, we're out of time. This has been great, and it's so timely too. And we really appreciate you calling in and give us your thoughts on this stuff. Really appreciate it, sir.
Thanks. Say a prayer for us.
Okay,
Absolutely.
will do. Absolutely.